Hi, everybody. Welcome back to I Do Declassified. This is our third attempt at making this video because our internet decided it wants to hate us today. So we are coming at you from our bridal suite to talk to you about kind of tips and tricks and what to do once you get engaged. So we're hitting that holiday season, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Valentine's Day is not that far after New Year's.
Oh my goodness,
Didn't think about that one.
you're right.
So a lot of different engagement season, holiday time. So men, that means there's prime opportunities to plan an engagement.
Absolutely.
So what we want to walk you through today is kind of where to go once you are engaged. So I think one of the biggest things about planning your wedding is just knowing where you want it to be. That is your first question you want to ask yourself. Are you planning one in your hometown? Are you doing a destination wedding? Are you eloping? Are you having one in your backyard? Do you have property that you're setting up a tent? You want to kind of know what you're doing first, so you know what kind of venues to look at.
Yep. So you're not wasting your time, essentially.
Exactly. And that will also help you narrow down as far as your venue searches go. So if you were to just do a blind venue search in our area, you'd come up with tons of different venue choices. We have everything from barns to old factories to ballrooms to fields where you could set up a tent, or, you know, random buildings that they've converted into venues. And so there really is a lot for you to look for. So if you know what your vibe is first, that narrows it down a little bit. And then you want to think about where to look. So when I was getting married years ago, Pinterest was around, but I want to say the Knot was just barely making it. It was just starting to trend. So really for me, it was just doing a Google search, but they make it really easy these days. So there's things like Zola, the Knot, Wedding Wire, Weave-In, Triple Seat. There's tons of different platforms where if you search wedding venues in my area, they have them all listed. One thing I would caution about that, though, is don't get frustrated if there are pages and pages and pages of different venues, because some of those sites, it does determine, like it does. Where you see the venue is based on like what the subscription is that venue has with that particular website. So if it's a venue that maybe is not paying for a subscription, they're just doing a free trial or a free subscription on that website, they might end up being the very last thing on a
or not even show.
Exactly. So I would just caution you in that way to make sure that you are scrolling to the end. It's not that those are the worst venues. It's just that they might not be paying for the product. But from there, you can really narrow down, and the sites are super helpful because you can click through different venues and just see and search from anywhere in the US. I mean, there are so many venues, so many places. And so just by knowing where you want to be, that's kind of your first step.
And it might even put you off into a whole nother area. It might show you Philly wedding venues. So you just have to watch and see. My go-to when I'm searching for venues and stuff like that, even though I'm not engaged, I still look out for you girls and guys. So you can sort of get help from me when you email Bree or myself. But when I'm looking, I go on TikTok a lot. I go on Instagram and Facebook. Those are my go-tos, just because I know how Bree explained all that. It could get tricky looking for different types of venues on those type of apps.
And I think social media helps a lot in that you can get a feel of the vibe of the venue.
Absolutely. You could see previous weddings from theirs, and it just helps you visualize the room even more. Other than us just telling you about it, you could see it.
I would also encourage, if the venues allow, to try to set up tours for days when there may be set up for a wedding or a weekend morning, if the venue allows that. Oh my God, I'm being attacked by a fly.
Where'd that even come from?
Just flew in the window that never opens, apparently. But yeah, if you can go on, if the venue will allow you to tour it on a day when it's already set up for a wedding, then you already have that kind of visual in mind, and you're not just looking at a blank slate.
Absolutely, yeah. So next thing, when you are exploring packages and emailing different venues and stuff like that,
it's like attacking me.
When you're emailing different venues and stuff like that, try to have how many people you're going to want at your wedding. You're going to decide on different things you want to pinpoint in your emails when you are emailing people along the way. But to start, just kind of have a head count, tell them dates you're interested in. So I know it helps me a lot when you tell me the actual month you want it, not just a range of like, okay, all of summer. Because then I have a lot of different times that I could be working on, and you just want a wedding in July at the end of the day. You're just trying to so try to pinpoint that date a little bit closer when you start planning, so we can actually get you the date you wish for, other than just settling for something that you think.
Yeah. And I think that it does also help to know your number going in, because you don't want to be looking at a venue that can only hold 100 and your guest list is at 200
or 300 even.
Yeah. Like there's always going to be that percentage of people that don't show up, but you can't guarantee that until you get your RSVPs in. And so you have to be looking at venues that really can accommodate what your max count would be. And then also just keeping in mind, like, yes, it's awesome to give us dates that you're looking for, but the biggest thing is just making sure that you're also being flexible. For a lot of venues, it's one wedding a day at their venue. And so if you come in and you only have one date that you're willing to have your wedding on, you have a much lower percentage of actually being able to book that venue.
That's true. I didn't even think about that possibility, because that does happen.
Yeah.
And also there's minimums at a lot of places, but that doesn't mean that you can have a list A, list B, list C. So we'll get into that kind of stuff as well. So when you're making your list, you might have your first group, so family, immediate friends that you've been with for years, and then you might have a list B. Did you have like A list, a B list, and a C list?
I didn't.
That's like new now.
Yeah, I didn't, but Matt and I are the youngest in our families, and both of us have pretty big families. So we started out with our count of what we thought it would be, and then gave our list to our parents, and
they tripled it.
Like we added another 75 people from their list. So I guess maybe that was our B list.
Pretty much, yeah.
Would be the people that our parents were like, whoa, we forgot about this person, and you can't forget this person. And even sometimes like family members that you don't know well, but like you have to invite them because it's, we got invited to their wedding, so you have to reciprocate. And that might not be the case at all for you. You might not care about that at all, but like for our families in particular, it was okay, we think we're coming in under 200, and our moms were like, no, you're not. Like you got 300 easily.
I think that happens to a lot of people, because along the way you see brides get more and more frustrated because then they're like inviting more than they actually thought. They'll give us a total of 200 people and then it will be 300, and they're like, I am so sorry, but it's okay because we could accommodate.
We have the room, and they knew that going in. Like they knew if we did expand, we had the space for it.
Absolutely.
So yeah. One other thing I would say to look out for, and this is a lot of times on the venue social media pages, more so than like those other websites where you can look up venues, check out promos. A lot of venues will run promos over the holidays. Some venues will run promos during slow season just to fill up some dates. And so you'll be able to find, like, you might get a really good deal on your dream venue simply because you were paying attention to their social media.
Yeah. Stay active with social medias. And you might not even know. Some venue might stick out to you just because they have this promo running that really interests you for your day of. And you're like, wow, look at how accommodating they are. And then you might be interested in another venue. So also don't put all your eggs in one basket either.
Yeah. Yeah, you might go in with one thought and then check out something else, and you never even thought about it. Me personally, this was Capriotti's is where I got married. It was never even on my radar simply because I didn't know it existed.
That's true.
And my dad, I remember his work. They ordered food. It's trying to kick us off.
It's trying to kick us off again.
I don't know if this podcast is meant to be. So his work ordered food from us a lot. And so my dad came home with the entire website printed off, like the blog, everything, and just handed me this stack of papers and was like, you should go look at this place. And it ended up being perfect. We walked in the door. At that time we met with Tommy, and my husband was like, okay, we're good. We don't need to go anywhere else. Like, this is it. So we had gone a couple other places and just didn't feel like it was the best for us. So, you know, we checked out venues that we thought amazing. We're definitely gonna love this place. We'll book on the spot. And we never did until we walked in here and knew nothing about the venue at all, and just said, we have your website printed out, so if you could just like give us information.
Right. I don't even know if you have one here.
Yeah, I know nothing about you, but your food's good, so here we are.
You might fall in love with the place. Go and tour those places. It might seem like a waste of time or this and that, but go tour those places, because you can fall in love with the staff.
Yep. You never know. Let's see, what else would you say once they're planning? Oh, I would just always say that, like, finding your venue is the hardest step, I think, because it's the first step you have to make. But keeping in mind, once your venue is booked, you want to keep your big ticket items in mind too. So, like, you need a photographer, you need a DJ. I mean, if that's what you're doing, I mean, you don't need those. But if you're planning on having a professional DJ, a professional photographer, a professional videographer, finding those vendors first before you start planning, like, oh, my centerpieces are going to be this and my colors are going to be that. Because there are a lot of companies that it's like a solo husband and wife photography team.
Yeah, they might be booked every single weekend.
Yeah, so you got to make sure that you're finding those. And a lot of venues will have like their preferred vendor list. Some of them require that you use those vendors, and others it's just a general suggestion. So thinking about getting those vendors first to make sure that you have the vendors you want on your wedding day.
Back to Pinteresting your ideas, I would recommend that you have a Pinterest board, like Bree said, and think of things like sweetheart tables or head tables or king's tables, however you want your room set up. So when you go into tours, you can ask them, hey, where do you put this sort of table in your layout? Helps you visualize the room. At Capriotti's, we're very flexible, and Bellagio Fields. We move the dance floor kind of wherever you need.
So knowing and recognizing, like, hey, this room has beams, so there might be a particular place that I do have to have my sweetheart table, or this place has a bar that juts out into the room and it has to go in this particular area, so where would I sit around that type of thing? Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, utilize the people that work there, because they're doing this every single weekend. You're doing it one time. So really relying on them and asking as many questions as you can. Okay, well, where do you recommend we do this? What's your favorite layout that you've seen? What's your favorite, you know, if you want to customize your menu, what's your favorite add-on that you've ever done? You know, lean on them to kind of help guide you so that you don't feel like it's all on you and you're getting really stressed out.
Absolutely. And back to emails and stuff like that. I know a lot of people come in to our venue in particularly, and they say that they're so confused with all the packages that they've gotten from every single venue. They just need to see the places. So just honestly get on a phone call with the venues. Try to ask them questions like that. You don't have to do everything strictly through email. It gets extremely confusing sometimes, and just, you know, pick their brain. And it doesn't hurt too, like, if you want to have a phone call, because I think you can learn a lot about like the personality of the person you're going to be working with too, right? So if you called Capriotti's and you were talking to Allie, you would be able to hear her personality coming through, and if you think you're going to be a good match with her as well as the venue. But you can always ask that person you're talking to on the phone if they'll send you a follow-up with the information that you had talked about, just so that you do have that like paper trail to look back on in case you forget as you're talking to a ton of different venues. But at least there's no room for like error or miscommunication when you're talking on the phone, because you can ask like, oh, well, can you expand upon that or something, versus like, it is so easy to like misread an email. That you know, misinterpret like a place that you know nothing about. You know, they send you this information. If you read even just one sentence wrong, your whole view of like what the wedding's going to look like could be totally changed from what it actually is. Absolutely. Yeah, you can miss stuff that's included into your packages and totally skip over that. That happens a lot. I'll get tours that come in and they're like, oh, you do this actually. And I'm like, yep, we do that. That's in our packages.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's easy to skip over lines and stuff like that when you're looking at them constantly, which you will be, but you will get through it. And once you get to the venue part, it'll be smooth sailing from there.
Yeah. And I think also being flexible with tours. So we kind of talked about already, like it's our recommendation that you be able to see a place when it's set up for a wedding. But at the same time, realizing, I think this is the biggest thing that is hard for people to understand, because a normal work week is going to be Monday to Friday.
Yep.
But we're working on weekends. So we need to have a weekend at some point during the week. So we might be off Mondays and Tuesdays, or here, like I know some venues, they just shut down on Mondays and Tuesdays. So you won't get any emails answered from them on those days.
Yeah.
For us here, because we do weddings, but then we have other events and things like that, or offsite events or grillings and things like that. So Allie and my schedule could change from week to week. And it does change from week to week based on when we're needed to help run an event, when we're needed to work an event, when we're needed for those tours. So kind of being flexible with your venue and realizing, hey, I know we want to get in. Yeah, like I know we want to get in this weekend, but the venue's telling me we can't. Well, I mean, the venue might be booked up with tours. They have to give their full attention to the wedding that weekend. Or, hey, I really want to see this venue on a Monday. And there might be exceptions. There might be days that like, hey, we're off on Monday. You know what? We can switch our schedule. We'll come in on Monday and take off on Tuesday instead. But realizing that we're not working 7 days a week. And so some of these venues aren't open 7 days a week for you to be able to tour. So if you're flexible and can give your coordinator a couple different times that you're able to come in, that's super helpful on their end too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And particularly with like venues that you're just renting the space, they don't have to be there, at all times. They just specifically do it based on when people want to come in to tour. So it could be different everywhere, but just keeping that in mind. Why? Driving me insane.
So that's pretty much all we have for you guys this week. We figured since engagements might be happening, we would give you some of our advice straight from the industry.
Yeah, exactly. And the next part of our series, we do want to bring in some guests and give you different perspectives on different parts of the wedding day. So stay tuned. And as always, if you have questions or there's anything you want to see on the podcast, let us know. Or hear on the podcast, I guess, if you're just listening in your car. So call us at Capriotti's if you're looking for a wedding venue, or Bellagio Field.
570-929-7200.
I could create a song about that.